Did you know that some of the most ordinary plants people once grew in their backyards are now completely illegal? These aren't exotic or dangerous species from faraway jungles. They were everyday garden favorites that almost overnight became forbidden. From harmless herbs to beautiful flowers, let's uncover 20 ordinary garden plants that suddenly turned illegal overnight, and the surprising reasons why. Purple loosestrife once symbolized elegance in garden ponds and wetlands, admired for its tall spikes of vibrant purple flowers. But beneath its beauty lurked chaos. Each plant produces over 2 million seeds per year, which spread effortlessly through waterways and wind. Once it takes root, it forms dense mats that choke wetlands, starving native cattails and sedges of sunlight and oxygen. These plants are critical habitats for ducks, turtles, and countless insects, all displaced by loosestrife's unstoppable expansion. By the 1990s, entire marshlands across the Midwest and Northeast had turned into single-species wastelands. The plant became so destructive that over 30 U.S. states outlawed its sale, transport, and cultivation. What started as a gardener's dream became an ecological nightmare. Even a single stem can regrow if cut, making its eradication nearly impossible once it spreads. Water hyacinth was introduced from South America for its dazzling lavender blossoms that floated gracefully atop ponds. But this beauty turned beast faster than anyone expected. The plant doubles its population every 2 weeks, creating thick mats that block sunlight and oxygen, suffocating fish and aquatic life beneath. In Florida's warm waters, it spread so aggressively that entire rivers became impassable. Boats couldn't move and irrigation canals were strangled by floating jungles of hyacinth. The cleanup costs reached billions as mechanical harvesters, herbicides, and even imported insects failed to contain it. It also provides breeding grounds for mosquitoes and snakes, adding health risks to its environmental destruction. States like Texas, Louisiana, and Florida eventually made it illegal to grow or sell. What began as a decorative curiosity became one of the most invasive aquatic plants on Earth, thriving wherever humans tried to control it. With its golden blooms and sword-like leaves, the yellow flag iris was once a favorite around garden ponds. It promised beauty and resilience, but delivered disaster. Beneath the water's surface, its rhizomes knit together like steel cables, forming massive underground networks that spread unchecked. In just a few seasons, it can overrun entire wetlands, outcompeting native species and clogging waterways. The dense mats trap sediments and alter water flow, destroying fish spawning grounds and nesting areas for waterfowl. Even the seeds float downstream for miles, colonizing new territory silently. Some gardeners still mistake it for a harmless ornamental, unaware that it's banned in multiple states, including Oregon and Montana. Even selling its seeds or transporting its roots can lead to fines. Its beauty once symbolized renewal. Now it represents one of America's most aggressive botanical invaders. Japanese honeysuckle used to be the pride of American suburbs. Its sweet scent filled summer evenings, wrapping fences and trellises with delicate white and yellow blossoms. But this fragrant favorite turned into a suffocating menace. Its vines grow up to 30 feet long, spiraling around trees and shrubs until they strangle them. It thrives in disturbed soil, roadsides, and forest edges, spreading faster than any native plant can compete. Once established, it forms a dense carpet that prevents new seedlings from emerging, slowly transforming vibrant forests into lifeless thickets. Wildlife that once relied on native flora loses its food and shelter. Several states now classify Japanese honeysuckle as a noxious weed, banning its sale and encouraging its removal. What was once a symbol of nostalgia now represents one of the most pervasive and destructive invaders in the American landscape. Giant hogweed looks like something out of a fairy tale, towering up to 15 feet with umbrella-sized white flowers. But it's more nightmare than fantasy. Its sap contains furanocoumarins, chemicals that react with sunlight can cause third-degree burns and even blindness. Many people have ended up in hospitals after unknowingly brushing against it while gardening or hiking. The danger doesn't end there. Seeds can remain viable in the soil for up to 7 years, ensuring its return long after removal. Originating from the Caucasus Mountains, it was imported in the early 20th century as an ornamental showpiece for wealthy estates. It quickly escaped cultivation and now plagues northeastern states, particularly New York, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. Authorities advise never touching it without protective gear, and growing or transporting it can carry criminal penalties. It's proof that not all beauty belongs in the garden. Kudzu was once hailed as the miracle vine, a fast-growing solution for soil erosion introduced from Japan in the late 1800s. The U.S. government even paid farmers to plant it across the South, but the miracle soon turned monstrous. Kudzu grows up to a foot per day in summer, covering everything from barns to power poles in thick green blankets. It smothers trees, blocks sunlight, and collapses ecosystems by starving other plants of life. Once rooted, its underground crown system makes it nearly indestructible. Herbicides barely slow it down, and burning often triggers regrowth. It now covers over 7 million acres of the American Southeast. The USDA officially labeled it a plant pest, banning its cultivation nationwide. What started as a patriotic project to protect farmland ended up creating the most famous invasive species in American history, the vine that ate the South. Elegant, tall, and crowned with feathery plumes, pampas grass once symbolized luxury in landscaping. But behind its beauty hides a wildfire threat. Each plant can produce over 100,000 seeds per year, carried easily by the wind. Those seeds sprout in dry, wild areas where they fuel fires with their dense, oily foliage. In California and Hawaii, it has transformed from a designer favorite to a state-recognized invader. The grass forms massive clumps that crowd out native species, turning entire hillsides into monocultures. Removal is difficult. Each plant has razor-sharp leaves capable of slicing skin, and burning it only spreads more seeds. California eventually banned the sale and transport of pampas grass entirely. Once the darling of architects and landscapers, it now costs millions annually in eradication efforts. A perfect example of beauty becoming a national hazard. Periwinkle, with its glossy leaves and delicate blue-purple flowers, was once a gardener's go-to ground cover. It thrived in shade, stayed green year-round, and seemed harmless. But Vinca major doesn't know how to stop growing. It spreads by creeping vines that root wherever they touch the soil, forming dense mats that smother everything beneath. In forests, it prevents tree seedlings and wildflowers from ever reaching the light, wiping out biodiversity. Birds and animals avoid the barren carpets it creates, leaving silent, lifeless understories behind. It's now banned or restricted in many states, especially across the Pacific coast. Even small garden patches can escape into the wild through clippings or flooding. Once celebrated for its resilience, periwinkle has become one of America's most deceptive invaders. Slow, silent, and relentless. Tansy ragwort looks cheerful with its clusters of bright yellow blooms, but farmers know it as a silent killer. The plant contains pyrrolizidine alkaloids, toxins that cause irreversible liver damage in livestock and humans. The danger doesn't disappear when it dries. Hay contaminated with ragwort has poisoned entire herds of cattle and horses. Introduced from Europe in the 1800s, it spread unnoticed until ranchers began losing livestock by the thousands across Oregon and Washington. Efforts to eradicate it included biological control using specialized beetles, but the plant remains persistent. Many Western states have outlawed its sale and require landowners to destroy infestations on site. What's worse, its bitter taste doesn't always deter grazing animals during droughts when they're most vulnerable. Its innocent appearance hides a deadly truth. Tansy ragwort isn't just a weed, it's a toxic menace. Japanese knotweed may look like harmless bamboo, but it's one of the most destructive plants on Earth. Brought to the U.S. in the 1800s as an ornamental, it quickly became an unstoppable invader. Its roots, or rhizomes, can grow through concrete, asphalt, and even the foundations of houses. A single fragment of root can regenerate into a full plant, making it almost impossible to eliminate once established. It spreads rapidly along rivers, roadsides, and construction sites, destabilizing entire landscapes. In the UK, it's so feared that selling a property infested with knotweed can reduce its value by tens of thousands of dollars. Several U.S. states have now banned its cultivation and transport entirely. Its innocent appearance hides its terrifying strength, a plant so aggressive it can literally bring down buildings. The tree of heaven was once planted across America for its fast growth and shade, but the name couldn't be more misleading. Native to China, this species quickly became a gardener's nightmare. It releases toxic chemicals into the soil that kill nearby plants, a process called allelopathy. It also produces millions of wind-borne seeds each year, allowing it to spread far beyond where it was planted. Worse, it's the preferred host of the spotted lanternfly, one of the most destructive invasive insects currently devastating crops and forests across the U.S. The combination of its chemical warfare and its partnership with invasive pests has made it a top target for eradication. Several states now legally require landowners to remove tree of heaven from their property. Its misleading name hides one of the most destructive and resilient weeds in America's history. Garlic mustard might look like a simple herb, but this plant wages chemical war beneath the soil. Brought to North America by settlers who used it in cooking and medicine, it quickly escaped gardens and spread into forests. Its roots release compounds that poison the soil for other plants, blocking the growth of native wildflowers and tree seedlings. Over time, entire woodlands become sterile monocultures of garlic mustard. To make matters worse, native insects avoid eating it, leaving it untouched while other plants vanish. It spreads rapidly. One plant can produce thousands of seeds, each remaining viable for up to 5 years. Ecologists across more than a dozen states have banned or heavily restricted its cultivation, calling it one of the most dangerous forest invaders in North America. What began as a humble kitchen herb is now a symbol of ecological ruin. Known affectionately as butter and eggs for its bright yellow and orange flowers, yellow toadflax was once a cheerful garden favorite, but its beauty hides a ruthless invader. Originating in Europe, it spread across the U.S. during the 19th century, thriving in poor soil where other plants struggled. Its roots can extend 10 feet deep and sprout new shoots from even the smallest fragment, making it nearly impossible to control. It crowds out crops, reduces grazing land for livestock, and infests rangelands from Montana to Colorado. Each plant produces up to 30,000 seeds that can lie dormant for years before germinating. It is now classified as a noxious weed in at least 15 states, with landowners legally required to remove it. What once symbolized rustic charm is now a costly agricultural pest, a deceptively beautiful outlaw in America's fields. This plant truly lives up to its name. Mile-a-minute weed can grow up to 6 inches a day under ideal conditions, climbing over trees, fences, and buildings in its path. Originally introduced accidentally from Asia in the 1930s, it quickly adapted to American soil and began dominating landscapes along the East Coast. Its sharp, triangular leaves and hooked barbs help it cling to everything, creating dense thickets that smother native plants. It blocks sunlight, reduces biodiversity, and destroys young forests before they can mature. The U.S. Department of Agriculture declared it a federal noxious weed, making it illegal to transport or sell across state lines. Despite ongoing biological control programs, including importing weevils to eat it, mile-a-minute continues to spread rapidly. What began as a nursery contaminant is now one of the fastest-growing invaders ever recorded. Despite its patriotic name, Canada thistle is unwelcome in both Canada and the United States. Introduced accidentally in grain shipments from Europe, this prickly perennial quickly became a scourge of agriculture. Its roots stretch up to 15 feet long and send out new shoots horizontally, forming vast underground colonies. Each plant releases tens of thousands of airborne seeds capable of traveling for miles. Once established, it crowds out crops, damages pastures, and reduces yields for farmers across the continent. It's also resistant to many herbicides, and mechanical removal only spreads it further. Nearly every U.S. state lists it as a prohibited or noxious weed, with strict laws requiring landowners to control infestations. What looks like an ordinary thistle has cost billions in agricultural losses, proving that even the smallest weed can bring an empire of crops to its knees. Creeping Jenny was once beloved for its bright golden leaves and delicate vines that draped gracefully over garden edges. But its charm masked a silent invasion. This low-growing ground cover spreads aggressively, forming thick mats that choke wetlands, stream banks, and forest floors. It thrives in moist soil, rooting wherever its stems touch the ground. Within months, it can smother entire habitats, starving native plants of light and nutrients. Wildlife that depends on native vegetation for food and shelter simply disappears. Once it takes hold, even a tiny piece left behind after removal can regrow. It's now banned or listed as invasive in multiple states, appearing on watch lists nationwide. Originally sold as a harmless ornamental, Creeping Jenny has become a creeping disaster. Proof that the prettiest plants can sometimes cause the greatest ecological harm. English ivy once symbolized sophistication, adorning universities, old churches, and red brick homes with lush green vines. But this European import has wreaked havoc on American ecosystems. It climbs trees, cutting off their sunlight and adding weight that leads to collapse. It crawls across the forest floor, smothering wildflowers and seedlings, and even damages masonry by prying into cracks and mortar. Entire neighborhoods in Oregon and Washington have been overtaken by this green plague, prompting bans on its sale and planting. Removing it is a nightmare. It reroots from the smallest fragment, and cutting it back often accelerates its growth. Its dense mats harbor pests and promote mold, making it as harmful to buildings as it is to nature. Once a symbol of beauty and endurance, English ivy is now regarded as one of the most destructive ornamental plants ever introduced. With its delicate white blossoms and intoxicating fragrance, sweet autumn clematis became a beloved climber for fences, trellises, and gardens. But what started as a charming ornamental quickly turned invasive. Its vines grow rapidly and form massive blankets that suffocate trees and shrubs. Each plant produces thousands of fluffy seeds that drift effortlessly on the wind, colonizing vast areas in a single season. It thrives in both sun and shade, allowing it to dominate diverse habitats across the southern and mid-Atlantic states. Wildlife avoids its dense tangles, leaving barren zones where native species once flourished. Many states now classify it as an invasive species, banning its sale or recommending immediate removal. Its deceptive beauty and sweet aroma made it a gardener's dream, until it began turning entire forests into floral graveyards. It's hard to imagine a plant with a more misleading name than the butterfly bush. Once marketed as a pollinator's paradise, this shrub actually harms butterfly populations by crowding out the native plants that caterpillars rely on for food. While adult butterflies visit its flowers for nectar, their young are left to starve in landscapes stripped of native vegetation. Each bush releases millions of seeds that spread easily by wind, colonizing disturbed soil and riverbanks. It forms thick stands that block the regeneration of natural habitats. Oregon has banned its sale entirely, and other states have followed with restrictions. Gardeners are urged to plant native alternatives like milkweed or Joe Pye weed instead. What was once sold as a symbol of environmental care is turned into an ecological contradiction, a butterfly bush that endangers the very creatures it was meant to help. Common reed was originally planted to stabilize wetlands and prevent erosion, but it quickly became a dominant invader. Its tall, feathery stalks can grow over 15 feet high, forming dense stands that block sunlight and suffocate native marsh plants. Over time, entire wetlands transform into monocultures of phragmites. Lifeless stretches where fish, amphibians, and birds can no longer thrive. It spreads both by seeds and by an extensive underground rhizome network that can expand dozens of feet each year. Once established, it's almost impossible to remove. Cutting it down or burning it only stimulates new growth. Many states now classify common reed as a noxious weed, making it illegal to plant, sell, or even transport its seeds. Once a supposed ally in erosion control, it now stands as one of the greatest threats to America's fragile wetland ecosystems. These bans remind us how easily good intentions can backfire. Many of these plants were once praised until they escaped control and changed ecosystems forever. Before planting anything ordinary, remember, the next outlaw plant might already be growing in your backyard. If you enjoyed this dive into the plants that turned illegal overnight, don't forget to subscribe. There's a world of hidden stories still buried in the soil. Common reed was originally planted to stabilize wetlands and prevent erosion, but it quickly became a dominant invader. Its tall, feathery stalks can grow over 15 feet high, forming dense stands that block sunlight and suffocate native marsh plants. Over time, entire wetlands transform into monocultures of phragmites, lifeless stretches where fish, amphibians, and birds can no longer thrive. It spreads both by seeds and by an extensive underground rhizome network that can expand dozens of feet each year. Once established, it's almost impossible to remove. Cutting it down or burning it only stimulates new growth. Many states now classify common reed as a noxious weed, making it illegal to plant, sell, or even transport its seeds. Once a supposed ally in erosion control, it now stands as one of the greatest threats to America's fragile wetland ecosystems. These bans remind us how easily good intentions can backfire.